there are times where you have to consider the money in life. And I think it'll take you on the right path. If you feel like you're compromising your artwork, it's not going to take you on the right path. But if you're doing it and you're finding success and you've come up with this line that is selling like crazy and you can make it on Saturdays and, sell it on your website, I don't think it's going to hurt your career in the end if you've put a boundary around it and maintained your regular practice and continue to grow. And maybe not everybody is going to be in the contemporary art world, right? There's so many different art worlds that, I think you have to find your truth, right? And I did find a lot of like old lady role models, And so,
Awesome.
these women that are sort of found in their 60s and 70s and are pushed forward by institutions and galleries that see the wisdom in a body of work, that the content is the result of 35 years of practice.
Welcome back. Today on Absolutely Sure, No Idea, we are talking with somebody who's lived more than one creative life and has managed to reinvent herself without ever losing her thread as a storyteller. Kim Manfredi has spent years building one of the most beloved yoga communities in Baltimore, Charm City Yoga. And for almost a decade now since selling the business, she has devoted herself fully to painting, creating abstract, deeply emotional works that now live in galleries and collections all across the country. But what's striking to me, having followed Kim's career as both one of her yoga students and a teacher at her studios, is that she doesn't just tell stories on the canvas, she tells them in everything that she does. From the way that she writes and speaks to her community to the experiences she's created in her classes and trainings, even in the quiet narratives that she layers in each painting that she creates. Truly an artist who makes story part of every experience. And what I've found most remarkable about her is how she has skillfully navigated the tension between art and life and livelihood. Whether designing a class, a business, a canvas, the through line always seems to be invention and reinvention through artistry. Kim, welcome to the show. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you for having me. And that was such a nice introduction.
Oh, good. I'm known for writing my introductions.
This is so good. We're so happy you're here, Kim. It's been lovely diving through a lot of your works and hearing stuff from Piper along the way. So I'm very excited.
Well, I'm glad to be here.
Amazing.
So my introduction to you, and we don't have to spend a ton of time on this chapter, it was a while ago, but my introduction to you was through Charm City Yoga, and is one of the few I found like-minded female founders and business owners in Baltimore at that time. You were really somebody that I looked up to as I was building my own community-focused ventures. And Charm City Yoga had what I think some people might call a cult following. What was it like to step away from something that defined such a big community and reputation and then reinvent yourself publicly as an entirely different kind of artist? I've always been curious about that.
Yeah, there you go. It was the only thing I could do. I mean, Chris and I, as we grew Charm City Yoga, knew that all of the growth was centered around a need in the community. So, we had 2 classes that I taught, and I needed to go to India to study. So I trained a teacher to be my sub while I was gone. And we had a full studio, and students were like, well, I live in Fells Point. I would love to be able to walk to my studio. So we opened another studio, and our growth always emerged out of the community's need, not some kind of ambition.
Mm-hmm.
And I taught and ran Charm City Yoga for 15 years. And for me, life has always sort of emerged in these segments that last about 15 or 20 years. Prior to Charm City Yoga, I had a company called Twin Diamond Studios, a Baltimore-based decorative painting company. I ran that after graduation for 15 years. We had 10 full-time artists, and that's how we ended up with the carriage house that housed Charm City Yoga. And so I realized after 15 years of teaching at the yoga studio that if I were going to continue and meet the community's needs, I was going to have to become a landlord, basically, someone who was managing leases as the organization grew outside of the sort of Baltimore, Columbia area. So that was not something that I could do or that I wanted to do. And so the community's needs were getting larger than Chris and I could handle. And so our choice was to begin to close studios down as the leases ran out and retire as we got older. Instead, this opportunity from a national chain emerged, and I knew immediately that in order to serve the community and give the teachers at our studios the most chance for success, even a national stage, that I had to step away. Meanwhile, right, like in 2000 and was it 9, I went back to graduate school 20 years after my undergraduate school. And so I started to reestablish my career as a painter. And I also realized as I was doing that, I was represented by Grimaldis Gallery, which is a big gallery in Baltimore, that I couldn't do both. I couldn't care for the studio in the way that it needed to be cared for and pursue the gallery. And so I did leave the gallery because I was so committed to the yoga. And, you know, sometimes you say no to the path when it changes the first time around. And then when the Yoga Works opportunity came along, I realized, God, this is this art path, you know, presenting itself to me again. And so that's when I said yes. It was complicated, but the one thing I do feel really confident saying is that my hope was that the opportunities for the community were enhanced by me stepping away. Now, COVID happened. That was a devastating thing for Yoga Works. That was a devastating thing for Chris and I in our relationship to Yoga Works. And I think that was a devastating thing for the yoga industry in general. When I look at the yoga scene now, I think, oh, I don't know if it ever really recovered in the same way. But I do see people emerging with their endeavors and finding their way. And, you know, maybe that's the way it was supposed to happen. I mean, I do have some regret about that, although I don't know what we would have done with 7 rents and COVID. And then coming here, my husband's British, Chris is British. He always wanted to live in California. So when we had the opportunity, we came here. Palm Springs has 5 national parks that surrounds where we live within, you know, an hour or 2 hours. Not to mention Los Angeles is right here, so I can just go. In fact, I have an art studio there that I'm there twice a month for a few days. And so this location worked out really well. Coming to California was Chris's choice, but I knew that if I did want to begin again, I had to either go near LA or near New York because I never really gave my art career that proximity to the center that it needed to move ahead.
Yeah. It's funny. The next question that was percolating as you were sharing that background was like, on one hand, you're starting a new life, but then on the other, maybe you are returning to a life that you were meant to live or kind of already living all along.
Yeah, I never stopped my practice, even when I was teaching full time and running the studios in India. I studied Indian miniatures. I was always doing watercolors on paper. I never stopped working, but working as an artist and pursuing a career in the contemporary art world are two very different things. I did not give the career my full attention. Even when I had it in a small piece with Grimaldis and he took me to Miami, it didn't make a lot of sense where I was in my financial life because, okay, I have a show with Grimaldis. He sells 7 paintings at $5,000 each. That's $35,000 divided by 2 is $15,000. You have a solo show every 2 years. How are you going to pay the rent?
Sure.
How are you going to buy the canvases? And it was also a little bit pre-internet, right? There wasn't the Instagram model of selling your paintings online. It was not that I didn't love myself as a creative being, but I followed the path that I felt I was thriving and most happy at. And the same when I came here to pursue the painting. It was just where my joy began to really be visible.
You hear a lot about artists of any sort feeling like they need to go to LA or New York to kind of make it official, if you will, or have like the opportunity really, I guess. But also oftentimes I think a lot of people move to those cities to be amongst their people and sort of maybe be inspired by the city. What was it for you? Did you sort of have the craft that you needed support with, or did you go to the area to help develop the craft? Was it a little bit of both? I'm always curious about that move for artists.
Even when I lived in Baltimore, I had an apartment in New York because I think looking at what's happening in the contemporary art world is essential for a contemporary artist. If you're not familiar with the language that's being spoken at the moment and the criticism and the support of that language, you could be making something interesting, but you're not educated on what's happening in the conversation.
Yeah.
And so for me, going to Los Angeles, I have a studio there. I go there Thursday through Sunday, twice a month. I don't really work there because I have such an expansive studio here. I go there and I have studio visits by gallerists, curators, fellow artists that I meet. I go to openings and see everything that's on exhibition there. And my understanding of what art is in 2025 is very different than someone who looks around at the studios and galleries that are local. That even applies to Joshua Tree, although Joshua Tree has a lot of LA artists who've done their time in LA, had enough of that, and have created a very elevated art scene. We don't live up in Joshua Tree because it's very challenging to live up there. And Chris isn't in a place where he would enjoy that lifestyle. I just did a residency up there for 30 days. I could live and work there. It's wonderful. But, life is compromise, especially if you're going to stay in a relationship.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Full episode on that.
So my proximity to LA is so that I am looking and conversing with people who are active on what I would say, the top tier of the contemporary art world. And that's important to me. I mean, I want to play there.
Well, I mean, it's like going back what you were saying around like prioritizing the career aspect of being an artist. You were like, this is something that needs to happen now. You've always made space for it from what I'm hearing for most of your life. But at some point you were like, okay, I need to do this career side of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I did find a lot of like old lady role models, And so,
That's awesome.
these women that are sort of found in their 60s and 70s and
Mhm.
are pushed forward by institutions and galleries that see the wisdom in an artwork, a body of work that's been, that the content is the result of 35 years of practice.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something that always strikes me about you is you go all in on things. Like full immersion, the learning, the experiential nature of the thing. Another word I heard a lot in the beginning and I'm picking up in a different way now is community. Community seems like it's been a thread throughout, even with Charm City Yoga, listening to what the community needs. Now, listening to what the conversation in your communities are to inform your own practice. How has cultivating community changed for you over the various chapters?
That's a really good question. I don't know. Well, I think with the yoga, I was cultivating community. And as the teachers in Baltimore became more and more studied, had influences, advanced, I became part of the community. And I really loved being part of the community. I feel as though finding a place for myself in an even larger community like the contemporary art scene in Los Angeles has been so good for my personal growth, right? Because believe it or not, I don't necessarily think I fit in, right? So it's been an opportunity for me to keep coming back to the practice of there's a place for me here. My voice is valued here. And my painting is valued here. Like incredible people in the art world have validated that mantra, right? By putting me in shows or referring me for an award from the very, very first, step into the water here. So, now I am still practicing every day. There's a place for me in this community and I have a role to play. It's interesting though, the art world, as you know, is a lot of no's, right? A lot of rejection. And continuing with that mantra that there's a place for me here, it's the ultimate yoga practice, right? Because you're following the yeses. Okay, this has served me. And now I'm going to do this. This is serving me both on the canvas and in the path that I take and the people that I connect with and the people that I reach out to and the awards that I try for. I love that. I mean, I just can't imagine really living any other way, or painting any other way. I just got a text from a woman who's a collector. She's very discerning. And she said something like, you have the most living painting practice I know. Your works are always changing in a way that makes sense, not for the sake of change, but because this is where the work is taking you. And like that
Mhm.
was so affirming. And so, yeah. So I love that.
I think you can really see that if you were to do a deep dive scroll on your Instagram or go to your portfolio on your website. You can see the shifts from
Mhm.
collection to collection. I just keep thinking about, not to keep bringing it back to yoga, but I remember the first time I took a class of yours This is going to come full circle in a second. Stay with me. I remember the first time I took a class of yours and I was like, oh my God, I've joined a cult because it was packed. It was low lights. It was nighttime on a Wednesday. It was hot. Mats were touching. People were touching. People were already practicing. The class hadn't even started yet.
Mhm.
And then the music started. And then your storytelling started. And I realized I was in this whole experience, and there was a beginning and a middle and an end, like most stories. And I see that in your paintings now. Whether you intend for it to happen or not, it's almost as if you really work through a story, you work through a moment, you start in the beginning, you kind of come to this denouement, and then it comes to a close and you move on to the next story. How does that land with you of a take on
Yeah.
your work?
Yeah. I mean, I think it goes back to the all in. When I was making those classes, it's the same process of making a painting and the history that I dug into for content for those classes beyond instructing how to do a pose is the same history that I dive into to make a painting, whether I'm reimagining Renaissance paintings or working conceptually in an abstract way. And I think I always said that when I was teaching yoga, that the yoga is a tool so that you can live a fully realized life where you're willing to feel some pain and recognize when you're experiencing joy. And in a way, that's what I want in the paintings as well, for myself when I'm making them and for the viewer when they're looking at them. I use a term called the uninhibited gaze. And my dream is that someone can come to my painting with an uninhibited gaze and see what they need to see in that moment. I have my ideas
Mm.
about the work and my experience of making the work, but it does live on beyond the process of making it, just like the yoga class lives on in each of those students with what they take out of the classroom. So in a way, I mean, I know you said you keep going back to yoga, but it's all the same for me. I
Mm.
do, I mean, I'll be perfectly honest. I do wish I could have a style that would stick, right? Like, cause it seems like I would
Sure.
be
Oh,
more
yeah.
successful, right? But I actually think that's sort of a dated misconception when I look at Picasso's body of work, not to compare myself to Picasso in any way, but when I look at his body of work from beginning to end, right? He moved through so many understandings of what painting and sculpture is as a result of his inquiry in the studio, his conversations with his peers, with his collectors, with the art world, that I have to trust that I know more than the person who says, it'd be really good if I could sell this one style of painting from now until eternity and you could set up a little factory to make them. Like, I don't think that's what art really is. And I think it's a misunderstanding that isn't going to endure the test of time.
I have so much to say right now.
I know. I can
The
see your
first
wheels
thing,
turning, David.
like,
I'm like, you have something to say about this.
so many things about the creative process and doing art for you versus others. But I guess my what just came to mind was curious, did you feel any of that sort of joining the conversations in New York or the LAs, or did you feel like at that point you had already sort of had what sounds like a deep, rich understanding of what your art process needs to look like? Did you ever feel the pressure of anybody sort of, well, that exhibit did really well? Was there any of that ever?
No, I get that
Yeah.
all the time. I can't listen to that. And it's not
Yeah.
out of some sort of incredible, I know what I'm doing. It's more
Right.
that persistent voice that keeps me moving forward, that keeps me. I come to the studio every morning at 7:30, 8 o'clock, 7 days a week. I stay here till 3 to 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I can't be someone else's employee. I do that because I like where my mind is when I'm making art. And if my mind is going to be in that flow state or whatever you want to call it, then the work has to keep inspiring me and teaching me.
So I did some research. Thank you for sharing that. I did some reading. It was one of the LA articles, publications that you did an interview with. And you talked about your day and you talked about getting up at 4:30 and biking for 2 hours, which I was like, of course, that's like desert life. But I also get it because it gets so hot. Anyways, but what I got is the physicality and kind of getting rid of kind of what they call like the monkey mind. So therefore, you arrive at your day with the ability to be really present with what you're feeling in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So I turned 60 last year, in July, and I went in January. I went to the Vermont studio for a residency, and it was 26 degrees. So for 30 days, I couldn't cycle. So I started a walking practice, and I walked about 7 miles a day. I realized during that month that as I'm getting older, that pace was a different pace. I saw the world in a different way. I liked what it did for my mind. So since January of last year, I actually have abandoned my cycling practice, much to the chagrin of my cycling friends. So I went for 5 years, I cycled 200 miles a week with my friends in that early morning thing. I went on this residency and now I walk 26 miles a week and it's the same. So in the morning, and I don't do it at 4:30, I do it at 6, right? but it's only an hour and a half. So it gets me to the studio, by 7:30, 8 o'clock. This is another example of my body is changing. I know what I need to calm the mind, and this practice is serving me better, right? And I made the switch. I mean, I have a $10,000 bicycle sitting in my garage. People are like, why don't you just go out for a little Saturday after? I'm like, what? Because there was a certain amount of fitness and ease that comes from doing something religiously that I think, Piper, you kind of referred to earlier.
Yeah.
And once I let that practice go, it's not about going out on the bike and tooling around. It's about getting my mind ready for the day in the studio. And so now the walking does that for me. And I've shifted to that practice without looking back at all. And so, yes, it's the monkey mind. Also, if you ever looked at the kind of yoga that I taught, it was a very physical practice. And I truly believe in the mind-body connection. Getting out there, moving the body, seeing the sunrise, breathing fresh air, being on my own in the world is very important to my physical self as well as what's going on inside the mind. I have to lift these huge canvases, get on ladders, haul paintings to LA. I don't have time to fall apart, right? Like I need to keep the physicality together.
Yeah.
I like how you talk about pace, just knowing what pace is going to serve you. I'm like a religious walker, and I realized in very physical practices that I've had throughout my life, I loved it, but I was always injured.
Yeah.
And I realized the walks in the morning really allow me to feel more grounded, to make clearer, more thoughtful decisions.
Yeah. You learn to listen to yourself. Right. I mean, I do seek advice about my painting career. I have some incredible mentors that, I don't even know how I met them because I was so new to the LA art world. But it worked out, and I do go to them for advice, but ultimately the decision is mine. And I tend to be one of these people that are like, I know what I have to do. And then I might be like, oh, I don't really have to do that yet, And then it might take a few months, and then I'll be like, oh, yeah. I mean, in Vermont, I was stuck there for 30 days, so the walking happened, but I'd probably taken a few walks, right? And which made walking be the idea that I had for this residency. So it's just that process when we're moving into a pose. To be honest with you, I was never injured in yoga because I wouldn't push I would push, but I would feel that backing off. Like it was always about pushing and then backing off and then pushing and then backing off. That lets me be familiar with a spectrum of sensation in the body. And then I create a way of being in that spectrum that I know where comfort is, or or ease, or center, right? And I think I was taught that in yoga too. Like center isn't one place. Center is moving forward, back, left, right. Center is a constantly changing thing. And so I think everything, including my paintings, like I'll be like, I'm going to paint really messy for a while, right? Like I'm getting too uptight. These are getting tight. I'm using tape, and so then I'll make a messy painting and I'll be like, oh God, I'm back in undergraduate school. And then I'll find center again where the tape was serving me to create an edge where I could be painterly with it. It's experimenting, pushing, rejecting, embracing all the time.
It's so funny. It's something that you said reminded me. I think maybe it was a Picasso quote. Someone said this. It always stuck with me. The moment that you hate the painting is when it's just beginning.
Yeah. I don't know who said that either, but I know that quote. Well, there's a lot of hating.
Yeah.
I mean,
that statement to me is interesting because there are those moments where I feel like if you find yourself in the flow state and things are just happening, like I've been in music for a long time. And so there are those moments when I can stay out of the way completely throughout the entire thing. Very rare, extremely rare. I think by hearing that for being your process, Kim, is that you seem to be very aware of you first to be able to serve the art at the best possible way, and I think that speaks to what you were saying earlier around not being able to, even if somebody was like, oh, create more of this, it's just not where you are as a person right now. Like there's been growth for you. And I think when we asked artists to do that, it's sort of, can you just start your growth a little bit so you can stay here?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's honestly what they're asking in a very indirect way.
Yeah. I mean, it's sad. Although Baltimore has Derek Adams, he came up with these works, which he took a long time growing and nurturing African Americans at leisure in the pool. I went to see his last show at Gagosian, and it's absolutely stunning. The surfaces, I mean, the way that they're made, it's just like, okay, I'll quit now. And with all his success, he's focusing on his community. He's building that residency in Baltimore where painters can find leisure. So the work is imbued in a different way. Where I got a little worried, oh, is he going to make these, whatever floaty paintings forever? Is he going to set up a factory? And maybe he is, but his heart is moving his community forward. And it's so impressive. And so there's so many different forms it can take, right? Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to say, losing myself in my work is also like losing myself on my bike or losing myself on my yoga practice, it's because of a consistent practice. You're there every day facing the full spectrum of who you are, happy, sad, good, bad, talented, terribly untalented, and you go at it anyway. When I say I'm in the flow state, it's not that I'm just winging it. It's a very educated, deliberate practice that builds upon the day before, right? And so within that structure, I can find moments of liberation, which you're referring to. And, and then it's my critical mind who has been to LA last weekend to see everything there is to see that decides whether the painting should be put in the garbage or not. It's like, it doesn't mean you're making good work. That's the other thing. In this day and age, that's sort of a difficult stance to take when you're like, these people are making derivative, unoriginal crap. Now, they're getting a lot of joy making it and it's in a different realm. That's fine. But I want to make something that I've never seen before that is better than the last painting I made. And that's my own evaluation based on what I know and what I see.
That was a piece of advice I got early on in my photography career, especially when things had shifted to digital, because all of a sudden you could do what they called spray and pray. You just hold down the shutter. It's on a memory card. You spray, you move the camera around, and you cross your fingers and pray that you got something good. And my mentor always told me, even though it's digital and you can take 500 images in 10 minutes, don't hit the trigger if you've seen that image before.
Yeah.
Well, number one, it saved me a hell of a lot of editing.
Yeah.
Because, people would have thousands of images and I would have 10.
Yeah.
But in some ways, it limited my creative process of experimentation and trying to see things in new ways. And I know that doesn't directly translate from photography to painting because they're different mediums. But tell me a little bit about what your process is when you start a new body of work to allow that experimentation, to allow that potential that it might end up in the trash. Because I think a lot of people struggle to even make a mark thinking like, well, I don't want it to look like everybody else's, or I'm trying to find my style or my voice.
Right.
Something you had even said to me is like, just start making marks.
Yeah. There's an instructor in the Valley, David Einstein, and he says, make a mark every day. So the last 2.5 years, I worked on reimagining these Renaissance paintings. Right. And so what I noticed was that I had been working with spray paint since I moved here as a way of bringing Baltimore to the desert. And I wanted to find a way to control it in a way that was going to make my own voice. And so I had to set some boundaries, right? So I was thinking about these Renaissance images that my grandmother had on the refrigerator, or they were placemats on the tables. I grew up with these saints and women around the house. And so in reimagining Renaissance paintings of women, many of them by women, using contemporary materials, I was setting up a set of rules. And the paintings themselves then had to work formally. They had to work scale, they had to work in color, I didn't really have to think about composition. The composition was there, but I knew I wanted to elevate the women from victim, martyr to an empowered form, very abstractly. And so that's one way of finding your voice, is to set up a system or a set of rules that are your own rules. Don't shoot anything you've ever seen before. But how can I say that in another way so that it's a new rule, like, shoot everything you've ever seen before, right? Like, right? Like, I don't know. So, and so how do you say that to yourself and then practice it for a while? And then I had a big exhibition of those paintings in Los Angeles. It did very well. I came back to my studio. I got out my little thumbnail of a Renaissance painting and I was like, holy fuck, I'm done. I can't do this again, because I learned what I needed to learn about the material, the subject matter, my agency around the subject matter, my understanding of feminism, and how my voice projects in a sort of intersectional feminist way. And how am I going to take this to my true love, which has always been abstraction? So I started to set up a new set of rules, looking at transcendental painters like Agnes Pelton. And so I started looking at those paintings and thinking in the same way with the materials, with the feminine, intersectional feminist kind of perspective. And then I started to make what I would call wayside shrines, which goes back to my studies in India. And I even made wayside shrines early on in my career. So, it all just keeps coming around. But for each body of work, I find that if I set up a little bit of a boundary or a rule that I create myself, I can find freedom within that.
I love that perspective. I'm definitely going to take that one. It's like already got wheels turning, like, oh, what new fun rule or parameters could I create to give your brain the homework assignment
to
dig into?
Yeah, I mean, it is a little bit of an academic endeavor if you want to speak on that level, like art as an inquiry. So some people don't think there's any need for that. But even if it's political protest, or even like whatever your purpose is for making art, there must be some intellectual study around that subject matter that can help contribute to the rule making or the parameters of the inquiry. Nobody writes a thesis on everything that ever was and everything that ever will be. They write a thesis on some segment of knowledge that they're interested in. And I guess I think of my work as my thesis.
Yeah. And then each body of work is, okay, what is my thesis now?
Yeah. Or where did this last body of work take me? Like, I tried to take from these Renaissance women this feminist perspective back into this idea of the transcendental, which I kind of have a little bit of a difficult time with, because the transcendental painters believed in stuff that I don't believe in, because I spent so much time in India and I spent so much time studying that I mean, it could just be that I have the ego of an armadillo that the saints could not crack, but more likely it's that much of the spiritual path should be left long before it's left. Many people take it to be the path itself, or I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say, like, I had my forehead hit by saints like 500 times and I never had the, like, I don't believe in that. I think it comes from within, and it comes from how we live our lives, and spiritual tenets help us live those lives in the most embodied way we can. Anyway, so I was like, how am I going to deal with these transcendental paintings when it's really the idea of an inner architecture or an invisible architecture that I'm interested in, or boundaries around being, or boundarylessness around being that I'm interested in. So it's those kinds of inquiries.
And even when you say the words like architecture, you can see that in the types of marks that you're making in your paintings. They are very ethereal and architectural at the same time. So I get that.
Yeah, my most recent body of work is called Invisible Architecture, and it's referring to the architecture inside the body, but it's also referring to the architecture of the social contracts that we live within. When I was in Joshua Tree, I was faced with public land and private land. So as I walked to the park each morning, I would see all these no trespassing signs. And then I would duck under the barbed wire because I went in the park on the backside. And I was in this public land, which felt boundaryless to me, but it was only boundaryless to me because I had my sunscreen, I had my water. I wasn't going to be arrested by some, ICE agent, right? I had my hat. I was completely comfortable. And so there's this mediated experience of nature that we all partake in, and we think it is nature itself, but really it's an incredibly complex system. So these latest body of work where I've been picking up sand and working with the sand, I started to pick up the actual earth in Joshua Tree and apply it to the canvases. And the imagery just turned out to be these, dolmen basically, or semaphores for boundaries and passageways to journey within. They became very layered and textured. I still feel as though they're speaking to the same self-inquiry that I was exploring with these Renaissance women, but instead of my body as a historically Italian American woman, this is my body as a seeker in the land, right? And the work is very different.
To your earlier point, when you do a body of work that's well received, people are like, oh, more of that, please. But you're kind of on to the next thing. And it is oftentimes very different. I think it makes each body of work that you create very special because that's it. Like, this is it.
Sure.
That's it. There's no more. From a business perspective, because as a contemporary artist, you also have to have that hat. And you have lots of experience as a business person. And I think that is one of the biggest things that gets in the way of a lot of creative people becoming successful with their creativity is doubts around money. How do I make it doing what I'm doing? Meaning the work. How do I do the work itself? How do you navigate that in this stage of your career?
Yeah. Well, there's always someone else, right? You just have to be able to deal with the comments where people are like, oh, I really liked when you were doing dresses, yeah, I'm sure you did. I mean, which is great. And I was like, I'm so glad for the support. But then you have someone who comes in and is like, oh my God, the texture, right? And they're looking at the new work and they're like, wow, this is still very labial. Someone else finds the connection and then I have to just keep moving on. And so I don't know what to say. I honestly don't think it works to keep making this same paint. I mean, I don't know. We have some people here, they make the same mid-century modern paintings and they sell them, but that's a different kind of success than what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a voice in the contemporary art world. I sell enough paintings to pay my rent and to buy my supplies and to support my practice. I don't know that I would be making enough money to raise a family or pay off a student loan, which I don't have to do at this point. So, I think that's part of why I did the yoga, right? Like I'm comparing this Grimaldis show to, I've got 35 students in the teacher training at $3,000 a person. How does this make sense? I'm not going to quit. There are times where you have to consider the money in life, and I think it'll take you on the right path. If you feel like you're compromising your artwork, it's not going to take you on the right path. But if you're doing it and you're finding success and you've come up with this line that is selling like crazy and you can make it on Saturdays and, sell it on your website, I don't think it's going to hurt your career in the end if you've put a boundary around it and maintained your regular practice and continue to grow. And maybe not everybody is going to be in the contemporary art world, right? There's so many different art worlds that, I think you have to find your truth, right? I lost a lot of artist friends when I chose the yoga studio over my Grimaldis career. Like my graduate student friends were incredibly disappointed in me. I mean, here I was given an opportunity. I was taken to fairs. I was in group shows, and I had to say no, thank you, because I knew it was the right thing to do for me. Plus, I was not enjoying making the paintings. I was like, fuck, I was like trying to make them before the teacher training on Saturday mornings. It was not what I wanted to do. So, like, I feel like if you have a fluency with yourself, you're going to know how to move through life. And it is not going to be according to someone else's recipe. It's going to be your own recipe, and it's going to come out of unexpected places. I would have never thought that buying that building for my decorative painting company and being a terrible landlord to my tenant upstairs. I mean, I was just awful. She's like, there's carpet trash up here. I'm like, take it out. Right. Like, I mean, I was like a horrible landlord. And so I started to teach my yoga class up there, and so that's what I was painting in my garage here. And then Yoga Works went bankrupt. So we lost our income, which was from the rent of that yoga studio. We had to move to an apartment, and I couldn't have a studio in the apartment. So I got a studio here, and that brought my work to the next level because I could make something bigger than 48 by 48. Like, it comes in unexpected ways, and you just have to keep exploring yourself in order to understand what your path is. It's not that I think I know myself. I don't know myself. I mean, I'm not going to make that claim. I'm an inquiring mind.
Yeah. I'm hearing a lot of integrity and authenticity. I'm relating a lot in the ways where, like, I've been in successful projects and then they've ended, and then I didn't know what I was doing, and then I ended up in San Francisco, and then I was riding a bike around. Didn't know anybody, so I just was like making sounds, and then all of a sudden Krylon shows up at my door, and then Double Dutchess starts, and that's a project for 7 years. But I was also like, I needed money, and then all of a sudden this other friend comes in and says, do you want to start throwing parties? So I threw parties, Kim, for like Black and brown queer folks, called Swagger Like Us in the Bay for like 12 years. And that became my
Wow.
full-time business. In many ways, that checked a lot of the boxes. Like, I was still working with other artists. I was DJing. I was still very connected. And this whole element of community that I was like fully creating an immersion, and didn't know that that was like the second calling. I love bringing people together. I love helping people as many ways as I can. And I love that. I like that people think that I'm a safe person. So creating that for a lot of people, I didn't know that all that was on the other side of, like, my friend asked me, do I want to throw a party? And I was like, I don't really like people that much. Like, that was like, that in my head, that's what I thought throwing parties meant. It means I have to go around and talk to people and be a personality. Like, no, get me behind the DJ decks, like, so I can have the space. Because that's where I initially felt comfortable. But from that, like, all of these other things happened. And I didn't know that was going to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm often grateful that I did not because, I spent my senior semester in undergrad in New York City. And when I saw the art world, which was just beginning to boom, Mary Boone was opening her place, Schnabel, all those guys were just getting going. Sherry Levine, I knew I didn't want that. Like,
Yeah.
so, and I look at people who did have success early on in the 80s. And I think in a way I dodged a bullet. I've lived a really full life, and you need enough money to live and feel secure. And I think anything beyond that, really, it just becomes about spending money, and it's really quite boring. But you do need that security. And I know about that 30 thing. I understand.
Yeah. Because that's all. I was just in bands my
Yeah.
whole life. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, wait, like, what about
Yeah.
like that part?
Yeah.
Honestly, getting back, I loved hearing all of your journey, because I can relate to a lot of the parts of, like, I think when my business ended, much due to COVID, like, my job was getting as many people in a room as possible. Like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like,
Mine too. Yeah.
talk about being done,
Yeah.
talk about being done like overnight. You're like, oof. But like, and I love that I work in mental health now, and I love it. And there is this getting back to the creative process after putting monetary frameworks around it, getting back to doing it just because I'm in service to it versus the other way around is quite a journey right now for me, honestly.
But I think like absolutely sure, no idea, right? That's
Yeah,
so amazing.
literally. It's exactly the whole point. It's like, I don't know when it's going to come. I believe that it'll come because I do think that even though you said you don't quite know yourself, you know enough about yourself that you know how to keep what's most important to you sacred.
My friend Julie says, keep the main thing the main thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Shout out to Julie.
It's, in each chapter of our lives, we value different things. We have different types of responsibilities, different weights to those responsibilities. And whether they happen in 7-year terms, that's me, or 15-year terms, like yours.
Yeah.
And you take a moment to evaluate what are those needs, what are those responsibilities, what are those desires. The name of the game is always, how do I make the space to keep the main thing the main thing?
Mm-hmm.
Kim, when you look back at your story, what's the thing that you've been absolutely sure of, and where have you had maybe no idea at all?
Well, I'm absolutely sure that I can't do it on my own. That community is important to me. I have no idea what's tomorrow's going to bring.
Yeah.
Truth.
I love that. That's a great note to end on, but I do have one question that I need to know, and I'm very curious. You did an interview with Himon.
Yeah.
And they asked you the question, have you ever come across a piece of art that you did not want to stop looking at? And you said, yes, when I was younger, the first Morris Louis in the National Gallery of Art in DC, you stayed in the lobby and looked at it until it was time to leave. What was it about that piece that kept you there so close?
Scale, color, composition. It's just magnificent. It's incomprehensible. Have you seen it?
No, I'm going to now.
Yeah. Scale, color, composition. It's incomprehensible how he made that and how it exists. And it's so ephemeral and so weighty at the same time. It's just everything.
Yeah.
Describe the painting for our listeners so they can imagine it and then be even more inspired to, if they live in the DM, hop on the metro and go check it out.
So you go, you walk in and it's probably 15 feet tall by 30 feet long. And this is how my childhood self is remembering it. And then it's just pores of color, big drips soaked into the canvas of blue, red, yellow, orange. I mean, you couldn't make the painting now. It would be a derivative of Morris Louis. But to discover that color and that art could do that was everything.
Can you elaborate on what you mean by do that?
Just transform me, like transform what I thought the world was, transform what I realized was in the world. It elevated me. I was lucky to grow up in a Washington, D.C. suburb. My parents were really good about taking us to the museums. Yeah.
It definitely has an impact, even now, and probably why community continues to be so important to you in the evolution of your work. It's you're curating your influences all the time. And when you're small, who's going to do that for you until you can learn how to do that for yourself?
Oh, that's a really wonderful thing to say. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Kim, I've loved having you on.
Thank you so much.
I don't want to speak for David. He seems happy too. This has been so wonderful.
So nice to hear about your process and journey. I'm so excited for you. And I just imagine you getting that monkey mind out of there and just losing yourself to your process. I think it's so beautiful.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this next year and building this museum show. And it's just going to be a great year, I hope.
Yeah. So tell the listeners what to look forward to and how to find you.
So I'm having my first solo museum exhibition at the Laguna Art Museum. It's an outdoor commission as part of the Art and Nature program, and then an indoor solo exhibition called A View from a Grain of Sand. I'm making paintings for the show, and it'll imply a 24-hour cycle. So it'll be from dark to dawn to day to dusk.
Well, folks, if you are in Laguna Beach
Yeah.
area. If you're in Laguna Beach, that
Opens in September and it runs through January. So it's a big
okay.
show. Yeah.
Kim, thank you so much for joining us. We
My
really loved
pleasure.
having you on, and we'll have to have you on again
Anytime.
next year, to see
Sounds
what
good.
you're up to then, because your work will be totally different, I'm sure.
Yeah, we love a follow-up. We
That
love a
sounds
follow-up.
great. Yeah, that sounds great.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.
Bye, Kim. So
Cutie.
good. I think about Kim so much, like multiple times a week.
Mm.
We haven't lived in the same city in over a decade. She was super influential in my life. Like, I literally took 2 classes from her, and then I signed up for her teacher training. Like, I didn't even want to be a yoga teacher. I just wanted to have a reason to be completely immersed in a yoga practice with her.
No, totally. I fully get it. I've
Yeah.
met people like that where you're just like, I just want to be around you. I don't really care what you're doing. I just want to be in your orbit.
I was like, I don't know what this is,
Yeah.
this world. I feel like I want to belong to it. There was just this sense of community and connection that I had been missing. And then I walked right into it. I walked into this vibe, this community, this culture that was just amazing. And then it really informed the tool library, like cultivating a culture in a community and a vibe. And like, I took a lot from the experience I had there.
And
And I think about that a lot, and that way of like, how am I cultivating community in this chapter?
it's hard. An actual vibe is impossible to fake because it comes from people's beliefs and lifestyles. And it's so nice to see somebody doing the things she's done and have just turned 60 who is still dedicated to keeping that main thing, like she said, the main thing. But I think I'm really trying to keep that space open and figure out how to get back to that practice. And it's like, God, having enough time in a day to be able to do both is
Well, I think it's
difficult
like
at
we
times.
always have enough time. It's like, don't change the goal, change the timeline.
Right.
Yeah, it's like, what is our view of the time that we have? If it feels like, oh, it's never enough because I love to luxuriate in these hours long processes, then it's going to be challenging. But in this chapter of your life, if you only have 30 minutes a few times a week, can you be okay with that?
Mhm.
We're just like such an all or nothing culture
Sure.
that can feel like really limiting. I've definitely struggled with it.
Yeah. I had a partner one time and I would always be like, I don't have enough time. Granted, I was like smoking a ton of pot and being a total degenerate, but he was like,
That'll totally eat up a lot of time.
everybody has the same amount of time. I was like, ew, that's it, like, but it's so true. And I think about it all the time whenever I even go to think that or say that. I was like, you got as much time as everybody else,
Yeah.
being able to still be that present for your art every day is a true discipline. It's a true sacrifice, really. I think that's also what she's saying. There's a lot of sacrifice.
But it's like, what exactly are you sacrificing? Like, for me, if I was to be honest with myself, but also kind to myself, what I'm sacrificing is actually not important.
Hmm.
It's like, oh, I'm sacrificing time I would have spent watching Downton Abbey. What exactly am I sacrificing?
None of it is impossible, right? Like I think it can require a lot of restructuring, like.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a super great conversation. I feel like it always reinvigorates how I think about my own work and life trajectory. And the fact that like she just turned 60, I've never been that person that's like, oh my God, I'm middle age. I will probably always think I'm 35, but I
Right.
am actually at this place where I'm like, oh, I kind of do feel 45, which is the first time in my life I've ever felt my age.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be really easy to feel that sense of urgency, like the clock is ticking. I have to do my ideas. And you felt that urgency for me on things I'm talking about or this project where I'm like, we gotta go. Like, time is going so fast.
Right.
And then Kim's fucking 60. And granted, she started this path a long time ago, but in earnest at, I think in her early 50s, it's like, oh, you've got time.
Yeah. I mean, she chose to recommit when she chose to recommit. I think we can
Yeah.
choose to recommit at any point, but there also are reasons why we're not there right now, too. I think that's something I have to also remember, where it's like, oh, yeah, lots of other things are happening.
Family, financial needs.
Right. Those things
Yeah.
also need to be attended to, too. And I spent a lot of time away from my family to make art my main thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
I love this podcast.
Isn't it great? It really did remotivate me.
It does. Every
Also-
time we talk to somebody, I am reinvigorated for something.
I know. Also, Brian Johnson is a great motivator.
That's so
Because
great.
he's like so dedicated to learning how to play drums right now. And we had a really long discussion about Radiohead the other day on Saturday night. And Kevin hates them. And I think it's so funny.
Who hates Radiohead?
But anyways, Brian was like, I learned the drum to Karma Police. You should learn the keys. So now I just learned my third Radiohead song all yesterday while I was like, David, you've watched enough TV. Please do something else. And I learned Karma Police and I showed my piano person today and he was all like, damn, look at you. And I was like, damn, look at me, bitch. Like the other day, I was like, oh, I'm like that friend who I made fun of 5 years ago. They'd be like, what do you just sit around and like learn covers all day? And I was like, I'm that person. But I get it now. Like I didn't get it before. I was like, why would you do that? Just make up something cool on your own. But now I'm like, okay, maybe there's like something to this.
Well, it's like that guy, Austin Kleon, who I think that's how you pronounce his last name, who wrote Steal Like an Artist. Like when you're learning something new or a new way of looking at the world and expressing that to like copy what you're inspired by until it becomes second nature and then you can freestyle it. So I totally get it, especially at this stage in life where you got like other shit going on and you don't have a ton of time. It's the path of least resistance.
Right.
Like, oh, I can go copy that thing.
I don't have to come up with a whole inspiration. Just start playing a radio song that I've heard for ever and be like, oh, like I like these chords. I got it.
Like when we interviewed Keenan and he was talking about the kid that he met on the train.
Oh, yeah.
Was he like a guitar player or a drummer?
Yeah,
and he's like, oh, I just played 10 minutes a day.
Right. These fucking 22-year-olds.
These kids.
I know. All right, boo-boo. So
another
fun.
wrap on a good episode. Thanks.
Love it.
Thanks, David.
Enjoy the rest of your day. And I'll see you
too.
soon.
Bye.
Well, that's a wrap, my friends. And listen, our goal is to grow this community of creative, unconventional folks on the path less traveled. So if this episode hit home, help us work the algorithm gods by taking 30 seconds to follow and leave us a review. It truly helps more people find the show, and we'll see you next time.